Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to HOTFIX. So, Mr. Kirioth, Jay Wilson, has effectively been sacked from his role as the Diablo 3 game director.
Good. Good.
Lord.
Good.
Oh, yeah, I kind of want to add Lord.
Good Lord. Goody. Well,
yeah, but I think what Mr. Kirioth was getting at was good.
Good.
The
lad's been there for 7 years, son. 7 years he's been working on Diablo 3, and it's not gone. It's not gone flawlessly, has it? Let's be honest here. It's not been a like the shining paragon of win that we hoped it might be. Do you get that? There's paragon things in the game.
Dear oh dear. Well, let me dive into that. Actually, that is an amazing link, Mr. Kirioth. Absolutely amazing. So, well, let's talk about Diablo 3 at launch. Not now, at launch. Okay, so everybody is absolutely dying to get hold of Diablo 3. The Diablo franchise is massive. Everybody wants this. You know, it's one of the only games I've actually I was really looking forward to it. Yeah, pre-ordered. I actually bought 2 copies of the game. Gagging for it. I need this game in my life. So when I'm faced with things like crap item drops, so what was happening is a lot of the items were below the level that I actually were. You know, so if I'm level 50, I'm actually getting level like 45 items that are dropping, which are no good to me. So that was obviously quite a frigging problem, because it was structured in a way where people at the higher difficulty settings, as they've progressed through the game faster, they were actually looting stuff which you could use in your previous difficulty, which is absolutely retarded. Because what were they looting in their difficulty? That is such a terribly bad design decision. I cannot even begin to even go into detail on that. It's so bad. Then we've got the real money auction house, which to me is a totally pointless thing in Diablo 3. Because the game's about acquiring loot. So if you can simply go onto an auction house and buy loot, that completely dilutes the game experience. They made excuses like, yes, well, the thing is, a lot of people sold Diablo 2 items on eBay. We didn't like that, so wanted to bring it in-house. I think you'd find if you looked hard enough, it wasn't really that many people who were selling Diablo items. Okay, it was happening. Okay, things like World of Warcraft Gold, that gets sold, that happens. This is not like... This is... very minute fractions of the community who actually do that. Most people do not buy stuff like that. So for them to use that as a very weak excuse to bring in something like the real money auction house, which of course Blizzard would benefit off, was very dubious at the time. And I think it was just a terrible thing. You know, I was in a situation with my barbarian even, I don't know what I said there, but where I'm like, I was forced to go on the auction house. And as I was playing, I think it was it wasn't Inferno difficulty, it was Hell, I think it was before Inferno. Whatever the difficulty was before Inferno. And this kind of, again, highlights the fact that I haven't played the game for ages. And I'll get onto that. I'm kind of going through the points at the moment. I sort of just bought all the loot off the auction house. None of it was drops. And that's like, what? So then why am I continuing to play through the game if I'm not getting any friggin' loot? Which is the whole point of Diablo 3. Or any Diablo game. But I've not finished there, Mr. Kirioth. Well, I've not finished there. So this takes me on to the difficulty, which was a complete joke. Now, I understand Diablo design of old. The game, you play through on one difficulty, you then go through onto the next difficulty, and then to the next difficulty, and then to the next difficulty. But why did you do that in Diablo 2? Well, you got drops, you got loot, the game got noticeably more difficult. And the game wasn't a total walkthrough anyway, even on the easiest difficulty. It was easy by comparison to the other difficulty settings, but it wasn't Diablo 3 easy, where you could literally have, like... You could have given the game to a 5-year-old child and they would have been able to have completed it by just smashing the keys. It was really that easy, and it was a joke. So why would you then play through the game, which, let's be honest, had quite a pathetic storyline that anybody could have come up with, and then do it again and again and again when you're not really getting the loot, you're not getting anything like that. And that's why I stopped playing Diablo 3. And I've never ever gone back to it, and I've got no intention of going back to it. You know, I know they've done things like they've brought in the Paragon system and they've made other changes. They've updated the legendary items and stuff like that. I just have no desire to go back, Mr. Kirioth, at all. Yeah, absolutely zero desire.
I just do not care.
I'd rather play Diablo 2.
Because I had the same thing. It was pathetically easy to start out with, but I didn't really want to buy items off the auction house because that's not really the point of Diablo, is it? It's not even slightly the point of Diablo. So it was like, I don't want to go to the auction house. So it went from being retardedly easy to being in the high difficulties and finding that some of my stuff was still from like level 10 because nothing ever dropped. And so then you have to go to the auction house, at which point you pimp yourself up to the point where you can stand in the middle of a group of enemies and just do nothing and still live. So you go from either being crippled due to the complete lack of any meaningful loot dropping to being so fucking buffed up and powerful that you could do whatever the fuck you wanted and not die. That is terrible. That is bad, no matter how you look at it. Bad. Bad.
Okay, Mr. Kiri, why did they not simply just make Diablo 2 with better graphics and a different story? And why is it... it's just... We're lost for words. We know you're lost for words listening to this. It's just so bad. But Mr. Kirioth, let's go into detail on Mr. J. Wilson and some of his choice behaviour. So I have here the very infamous interview with Ink Gamers and David Brevik, who is of course of Diablo fame. So Ink Gamers, they say, do you think they brought the wrong person in? As we understand, J. Wilson, for example, his background was RTS from our point of view, blah blah blah. It's kind of pointless me reading it out. Everybody knows the tale. Ink Gamers interviewed David Brevik. Yeah, David Brevik put forward some of his thoughts, Mr. Kirioth, on the game, but there wasn't exactly sinister or vile thoughts. Nothing that really should have provoked the response that he got, which was Mr. Kirioth.
Well, in response to Mr.
Disgusting.
In response to Mr. Brevik saying it's not how I would have done it, but I can understand why they did. The response was, what was it? Fuck that loser. Fuck you, loser.
Fuck you, loser. Fuck you, loser. Fuck that loser. Very eloquent, I'm sure you'll agree.
I mean,
on Facebook, no less, as well.
That's just pathetic in every single way. I mean, I've read the interview with David Brevik, and I've read it a couple of times because I really wanted to know what it was that was in there that was so bad that it would cause someone who is in a public position, who is talking to the public all the time about this game, who is the face of the game, to turn around and say something like that. And I'll be honest, I do not get it. I mean, there was this whole thing. I mean, Jay Wilson issued not an apology. It was supposed to be an apology. It was dressed as an apology, but it was not an apology underneath. And he said that he couldn't let someone sit there and insult what he'd done and disparage the commitment and passion of the Diablo 3 team. He didn't take it lightly. What he said was expressed out of anger and in defence of the team and the game. Now, okay, but David Brevik didn't slag the game off. That's the problem.
Yeah, this is the problem. It's not like he's turned up and gone, this game's a piece of shit. If I was in charge, it'd be a lot better. The reaction of Jay Wilson was pathetic. For somebody in his position as, you know, the lead game designer for Diablo 3, the head honcho, the big boss man of the Diablo franchise, or he was, to say something like that in such a public space as Facebook and not expect to have any kind of repercussion is absolutely 100% full-on retard mode. I cannot even... It is so bad. And well, I mean, let's talk about professional respect.
Or the complete lack of it.
They basically invented Diablo, yeah, and then he just slates on the guy, which has effectively gave him a job, you know, because he's now taken over the franchise they created. It is so unbelievable. On every single level, it is just pathetic. And to have anybody in a position like that, if I was running Blizzard and I had one of my... He's effectively a department head, and he's going around saying things like that. He is not going to be a department head for very long, and that is basically what's happened. Now he's been shown the door. So... He's not, well, I believe he's moving on to other things within Blizzard.
Customer
Very
support?
nondescript. Customer support, yeah, something. Well, no, you couldn't even have him on customer support because he'd just rage at people.
My copy of Diablo won't load. Fuck you, loser.
Put the phone down. Next. So, it's just unbelievable. I mean, what do you think? Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of a moot point. It's a bit stupid to ask you what you think. But I believe... he, because of the way he acted, he deserved to be gone. Because of the product he delivered in Diablo 3, he is the head of this product and the design decisions they made, which, you know, if it wasn't Diablo 3, if it was Bob's Axe Quest 1, yeah, brand new IP they've come up with, would it have sold very well? No. It would have sold decently well because it's a Blizzard title. But because it was Diablo 3 and the massive... It's a cult following Diablo's got. Everybody wanted Diablo 3. So that drove the sales. So even though it was like a half-baked, not a very well-rounded product in terms of when you compare it to the previous title, because usually the sequels are generally better and have more features, but that is obviously not the case with Diablo 3 when it launched. You end up with everybody buying the game, and they play it, and then they don't, like, they have literally bought it off the power of the name alone.
Hang
on, is this detrimental to Blizzard? Does this mean when Diablo 4 gets announced, or some sort of expansion pack or whatever, people might instantly, they're now starting to associate Diablo with a half-baked, half-arsed game, not a perfect product? Because like a lot of, almost every single game Blizzard has released has been a complete success, really. I think the only two I can really think of is Cataclysm. I don't think was that well received, although Mists of Pandaria has been massively well received for World of Warcraft, and obviously Diablo 3.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think he may well have just been completely out of his depth in some way. Jay Wilson, I mean, I wonder if perhaps part of it can't be laid at the foot of Blizzard as well, because as we say, Diablo is like, he was there for 7 years on Diablo 3. Diablo 3 is not a game that takes 7 years, not at this stage, not
that's
at
crazy.
all. It's like how that even took that long is just a downright mystery. But when you look at what Jay Wilson has worked on before, in 2003 he did additional design support for Homeworld 2. 2004, design and story for Warhammer 40k Dawn of War. 2006, he was the senior designer on Company of Heroes. Now, I read that, and my immediate thought is, yeah, that's the guy who needs to produce the next Diablo game. Who the fuck gave him that job? The guy, he's RTS. He's RTS through the core. I mean, Dawn of War and Company of Heroes. Seriously, you look to the person who produced...
And Homeworld. They should have sent him off.
It's like,
maybe he's gone off to StarCraft then. Maybe that's a proper job.
It's an absolute mystery as to why he was even given it in the first place. Because Diablo 3, someone who has done extensive work on, let's face it, some of the best RTS games we've ever seen, it's not going to suddenly go into a fucking hack and slash RPG and be like, yeah, I can do that. It's a massive change of direction. It's a massive change of how you work.
So maybe this was a case of a shitload of pressure building up on him. And even though it was a small expression of anger in a very public place, and very, very unprofessional, the whole fuck you loser incident, maybe it's because he was just out of his depth and he just was, honestly, didn't know what he was doing, and just, I've got a quote here from Jay Wilson's sorry note. This is where he says he's sorry. He says, regardless of how I've done, my team has been more than good enough, and I'm proud of the game we made together. We believe it's a great game, but Diablo 3 has flaws. It's not perfect. Sales mean nothing if the game doesn't live on in all of our hearts, and standing by our games is what Blizzard does. So I mean, that's kind of like, nothing really. But going back to the whole point of the sales, Diablo sold shed loads. Wasn't it like it was record breaking, wasn't it? The sales of Diablo 3.
Yeah, it was insane.
So,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but
yeah. So we all know there's the Activision Blizzard merger. So the suits, the money men, are obviously going to be very impressed with this, and it's like, yeah, that's great. So I think we're in a weird situation where it's kind of gone down as a win for Blizzard in that sense. But as I said earlier, I think this has really hammered the Diablo franchise to a point of it really needs some sort of, like amazing recovery to really push it back to the fore, because I have no experience, not experience, but no inclination to even load Diablo 3 up and play it. I know people who were addicted to Diablo. In fact, addicted's not even the right word. They played Diablo 2 like animals. That's the only way I can describe it. Yet they don't give a shit about Diablo 3. That's not right. That's totally wrong. So we're going to throw it over to you guys. What do you think about the whole Jay Wilson thing? Are Blizzard right to do this? Did you like Diablo 3 and what Jay Wilson did with it? Because, some people might. I mean, from my opinion, I honestly think that he has delivered a very subpar game and he's acted like an idiot. So he deserved everything he got. So I've been Stylosa, guys, and he's been Kirioth. Follow me on Twitter, which is @UnitLostGaming, and follow Kirioth, which is @Kirioth. And we'll catch you next time. Toodaloo.